This is the Podcast Express, and we're talking to whoever's listening out there. Welcome to 5 Minutes of Trouble, the only podcast on the internet that discusses the John Carpenter film Big Trouble in Little China 5 minutes at a time. I'm Josh Horowitz from the Wing Kong Exchange at www.wingkong.net.
And I'm your co-host and co-pilot, Brett Stillo, riding shotgun in the Pork Chop Express. I forgot the name of our own vehicle.
Now, the Podcast Express. That's
our
witty version of the podcast, or the Pork Chop Express.
We're off to a flying start.
Doing great to start. Well, this is a very, very special episode of 5 Minutes of Trouble. To mark our 10th episode, our podcast anniversary, I don't know what you want to call this.
Double digits.
Yes.
We're entering double digits.
We have two special guests on board the Podcast Express. We have a returning champion from before. We have Audra Wolfmann.
I'm a champ!
And we have a first-time podcaster for the very first time in the internet history. Podcasting with me is my better half, the girl with green eyes, Lena. Welcome,
Hello.
Lena.
Hi. Happy to be
Hi,
here.
Lena.
This is pretty cool.
So this is your very first podcast.
My very first podcast, and I'm totally
Awesome.
excited to be here.
Is it everything you imagined it would be?
And more. Well, so far.
Or
Well, you know, Josh has always been talking about it, and I've been kind of seeing what he's been doing on the sidelines, but it's cool to actually be a part of it now. So
That's
Yeah.
right. When the door closes, I'm actually recording episodes for this. So now you
Yeah.
get to see it.
And now you realize it's just like the Matrix, where you've left, this mortal world, and everything's golden, and like there's flying cats, and the magic podcast land. There's nothing to eat but candy and Doritos,
and lollipops. And Doritos.
lollipops.
That's right.
gave me diabetes and cancer.
But yeah, so we are here to discuss minutes 45 through 50 of Big Trouble in Little China. Minutes 45 begin with Jack and Wang tied to wheelchairs in a round room filled with skeletons, and they end with Lo Pan's head pulsing and glowing like a light bulb.
Wow.
As it should.
Yeah, we just finished Halloween not too long ago, and so it's kind of appropriate that we're at the scene where Lo Pan's head starts to glow just like a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
It's also appropriate because they come to in this, basically the set of a haunted house with all the skeletons around.
Yeah, it does
Yeah.
feel like that. And in fact, that brings me to the first point that I noticed when they're in this skeleton room. One of the lines that Jack ends up saying, he notices that we're in a room, no windows.
And no door.
Yeah, that's what I was totally expecting. It was going to be the next line, little haunted mansion right there.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, the voice of Paul Frees. Yeah,
Yes.
windows, no doors. Man,
There's only one way out.
only one way
That freaked me the heck out.
out. Oh. Don't get me started on the Haunted Mansion.
When they drop the noose from the ceiling, it's so nihilistic. It's so horrible. I remember being 8 years old and being like, my God, this is dark.
Total tangent time, but yeah, I was 6 in the Haunted Mansion, and I was even at 16, I was too young.
It
Yeah.
can be a really scary type of ride for somebody who hasn't been on that before. I remember when I went to Disneyland when I was a kid that I didn't want to go on the Haunted Mansion. I was just like, spooky, everything like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was maybe 10 that I think I finally, girded up enough courage to want to step through that. What about you, Lena?
Yeah. I mean, when we went to Disneyland the last time, actually the first time with our daughter, I was kind of like scared for her. Remember, I was like, I think she's not going to like this. And then surprisingly, she was like, oh, I'm fine. Because like you have your own childhood memories, right? And then you think your children are going to also behave that way. But she was totally, right? She was like totally fine with it. So, but needless to
Cool.
say, I would not want to be in that room with Jack Burton doing,
It is a creepy room. I mean, totally round. You've got those skeletons on the wall. Though Jack does add a little levity to it. He goes by, starts tapping things with his knife.
Yeah.
He has to make sure to tap that one skull.
Yeah,
Very
you know
nice.
what? Speaking of that knife, what the heck was he doing with that knife? Weren't they going to pat him down or something to discover that knife? I mean, if you're going to actually strap somebody to a wheelchair and blindfold them, might as well check if they have any weapons on them,
That's
right?
a very good point.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, and it looked to me like this is something I'd never really noticed before. That like his, we kind of make fun of his Ren Fair boots, but it did look like he got away with it because there was like a secret, compartment in his Ren Fair boots.
Mm.
So I'll bet you like he stashes weed in there and, probably all kinds of things.
It's his man purse, his man bag.
So maybe it's
Yeah.
not all in the reflexes, right? It
Yeah.
must be whatever he's stashing.
Oh, yeah. We were talking, I think, in an earlier episode that, what is it that keeps Jack going? Remember, he's a trucker and, he never goes to sleep. So, is he taking some of that trucker speed? And if so, where is that being kept?
Yeah.
The moccasins.
In the moccasins. So yeah, he does like seem to lift up like a little latch in the boots, or a little, I don't know, a fold, an envelope.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does seem as though like it was hidden in there.
A scabbard.
A scabbard. A moccasin scabbard.
That's right.
And that knife is actually specified in the screenplay. W.D. Richter makes sure to point out that it's a Gerber Mark II survival knife.
Wow.
You can actually go out and buy those today. I think it's something military. Yeah, it's pretty good looking knife.
Which brings up the question, Josh. Have you ever had a Gerber Mark II survival knife? Is that in your collection?
It is not. The one time I actually dressed up as Jack Burton for like a costume contest, I just got one of those little plastic springy knives. I didn't
Much
actually go to that thing. Yeah.
Better idea. But yeah, I'm going to have to look up a Gerber Mark II because the Mark I's suck.
Yeah, no one's using those anymore.
And, also I'd like to think that it's the same Gerber company that makes the baby food.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said Gerber, I was like, baby knife?
A baby knife.
Yeah, they make baby food. They make survival knives. Sure. It's a very open-ended company.
Yeah, it's a big family. They're very diverse. But, there's a theme that Jack says early on that I think is prevalent in this 5 minutes. And it's like, where are we?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's sort of, up and down. And like, I notice, we're talking about how creepy the room is. And there's a nice touch that the light is coming from the floor, which is very disorienting. People are confused here. Mm-hmm. They don't know where they are.
Yeah, I mean, they were blindfolded and they were brought down there, and then I believe in the last episode, Pete Mummert was saying that, are they actually in hell? Is this truly, well, he was speculating, are Jack and Wang dead? I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of crazy to think about it, but yeah, it's a very disorienting place. The light's coming from the floor. Where are they?
And I got to admit, I can't remember last week in this particular room. Is this a hell?
It's not referenced as such in the screenplay. I don't know. I think it's just a holding room. It's their purgatory.
Okay, so maybe it's the lobby of a hell.
Oh, hell.
It's the hell of the waiting room.
Yeah, definitely the waiting room.
That would be quite a hell.
Mm-hmm.
You got to
Like
take a number, and they
like
just
that.
never seem to get to your number.
Oh, that's a really good hell.
Mm.
Yeah, the hell of waiting forever. Ooh, that might be the worst hell of all.
Isn't that what limbo is? Or
yeah, that is limbo.
Minus the sticks that they have to go on.
Yeah, they do. Very Belafonte limbo.
not yeah.
How low can you go?
But then moving along, we kind of jump back and forth to different viewpoints. We move from the skeleton room over to the freight elevator, and Thunder, who has just said that he can help you, he's taking Gracie and Eddie and Margot on their tour.
Right.
And so Thunder closes the elevator. Yet another elevator. Please, everyone, take a shot if you're doing the drinking game at this point. And we get to hear Carter Wong speak Chinese while Eddie translates.
Yeah. So during that part, I'm thinking, okay, what is he saying? Is he really saying something in Chinese? And was that an actual translation when he, actually translated? So I'd be curious to find out, like, what was actually said.
I would imagine that, he's just speaking the line that Eddie's translating. But my own personal viewpoint, I'd like to think he's saying, it's really great working with John Carpenter. He's a great guy.
Or it almost brings to mind like the scene in The Goonies where I think that was where the Spanish maid was talking and then Mouth starts to, translate it really, really poorly back to her. So, is he totally saying something different here? I wonder. But Thunder, though, he does have a lot more English lines in the screenplay. Quite a few, actually. And I'm wondering, did Carter Wong actually have trouble with these English lines? and so they switched it to Chinese. Because at this point in the screenplay, he's speaking English to them, not Chinese.
That's a good point. Like, maybe because he does have a few lines in English, and maybe in this scene it was just like, and maybe that's, we've wondered in the past, what's Eddie doing exactly? What's he here for? And well, one thing he's doing is translating.
Oh, you mean like Eddie needed a job?
Eddie
That's
needed
why
a
he's
job.
speaking in Chinese.
Yeah, so it's like
Okay.
he's there to translate. So
The translation expert and the exposition person as well. He's got all those lines where he explains what's going on.
yeah, and that's what he's doing here. He's translating.
Mm-hmm.
Although Margot has a funny expression on her face here.
Yeah, talking about the strange things.
Yeah.
And then the elevator starts to fill up with the knockout gas. And it wasn't, this is another thing where when I watched this as a kid, I never knew what exactly was going on. I only, after watching it later, I realized, oh yeah, Thunder's cigar is the thing that's generating the knockout gas. It's not just something coming from the floor or whatever. And,
Oh.
yeah, because he brings that cigar in and then
Oh, I
it's
didn't notice
smoking.
that. I never noticed that.
Yeah.
After rewatching it
Mind
again.
blown.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't affect him because, well, he's
Yeah, I was
Thunder.
gonna say everybody leaves,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't affect him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the benefits of being a storm. You can, he doesn't have to worry about lung cancer or anything like that. Just
No.
inflation. Well,
Either
that will
or
come later.
or he's able to hold his breath for a very long time.
Well, maybe. Maybe. This then brings up some new characters, the 4 female Wing Kong guards. And my note here was that I'm glad to see that the Wing Kong Exchange is an equal opportunity employer. It's not just male guards. We got some females too.
Yeah.
And we come back to the skeleton room. We're going fast and furious here. And then we get a close look at what those skeletons are. My note was that it almost looked like something out of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Right.
Sure does. It's very Disney. The whole thing is very Disney. He's trapped in the haunted house Pirates of the Caribbean room.
Yeah, it certainly has that feel. If you look at it though, and then you wonder, okay, let's assume they are real skeletons. So who was kept there? I mean, how long has Lo Pan and the Wing Kong actually been keeping prisoners? I mean, those are pretty, old skeletons.
Yeah, remember how they mentioned in the conversation with Jack Burton the history that it goes back at like 500 BC. He starts talking about the history, the Chinese history.
272 BC.
Oh, 272. Okay.
Yeah.
So they've been in San Francisco, Chinatown since 272 BC.
Not a lot going on in Chinatown in San Francisco around that time. But maybe, I don't know, maybe he, he had those prisoners or whatever, and then he decided to just sort of hold on to the skeletons, take them with him wherever he goes, China one year, New York the next, now it's San Francisco, Chinatown.
Maybe it was used for feng shui purposes for the room.
Totally feng shui, yeah.
Ties the room together.
Totally ties the room together. I'd like to think that, maybe it's Lo Pan's hobby is he collects skeletons. And it's just like when he made the big move to California, it was like, well, we got to bring the skeleton collection.
You'd think he'd want to take the skeletons out of his closet, but no, he takes it with him, of course.
Yeah, and maybe it's a weird thing with him. You don't have a body, so you collect other people's bodies. Yeah. We don't, I don't know what it'd be like to be like 2,000-3,000 years old and not have a body, but
It's a dead man's party.
it is.
Who could ask for more? Let's see. So Jack is clearly frustrated at this point. I like his line where Wang, he tells him, don't give up. And he's like, all right, we'll just chew our way out. Now we're back to the whiny Jack that we had back in the earlier minutes around 24. I'm going home. Keep your money. He hasn't lost that. And he's going through transition, certainly. But there's still little bits. He doesn't like the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned transition. Yeah. This is where, Wang once again steps up. And, he has his moment of exposition and storytelling where we get some, we met Lo Pan in the last episode. We were face to face, but we get some key information about him that, Lo Pan being the modest man he doesn't mention. It takes Wang to say, okay, here's some backstory for you.
Yeah. And it's interesting backstory too. Lena, what did you think? I mean, do you remember when he sort of tells his campfire version of the history? I mean, you've only seen Big Trouble, well, really with me, but what did you think of all the history behind this stuff?
Well, I mean, part of it sounds like it could be realistic, and part of it's like totally unrealistic. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's like you're sitting and listening to like campfire story of like history in the past and things like that. And I wonder, when he said that, a thought that came into my mind is, what do the Chinese who've watched this movie think? Like, do they feel like, they're making fun of us, or are they thinking, oh, this could be something that we could have told our children as stories?
Well, the interesting thing is that a lot of this stuff was done with quite a bit of research by the screenwriter W.D. Richter, and we've had some guests on in the past, Desmond Miller and Pete Mummert certainly, and they actually note that a lot of this stuff is backed up with actual historical stuff and with Chinese mythology and fantasy.
Good.
So
it's good that they did that.
So yeah, it does lend a bit of authenticity to all of this. I think some of the names may be off a little bit, but yeah, it's based on truth, or at least what people talk about as truth.
I want to know more about the truth behind monkey sacrifices that he mentions. Ancient armies of the dead, spirit cities. Like, basically, he doesn't really explain anything. He just sort of makes lists of things that bring up other questions.
Yeah.
Sorcery, Chinese black magic. It's not really an explanation. It's more of like he's ready to explain the myths and legends. He's ready to reveal these things, but yet he just makes another list, and nothing's explained.
Well, I wonder, when he talks about the ancient army of the dead, I'm wondering if he's referring to the Terracotta Army. Have you guys heard of that before? The Terracotta Warriors?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a quick little look into this one. They actually found this back in 1974 in the Shaanxi province of China. So as the story goes, King Shi Huangdi, who was the first sovereign emperor of China in 210 BCE, he ordered this army created to protect him in the afterlife. And it consists of about 8,000 statues of soldiers, chariots, and horses. So I wonder if that's related somehow. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I like that angle. I'm just glad we didn't see any monkey sacrifices.
I would not watch the movie if that were the case.
Yeah.
Or,
I've got standards.
Lopan being the twisted individual that he is, are these human sacrifices conducted by monkeys? Is this the hell of being killed by monkeys?
I don't know. I think there's enough monkeying around in this movie.
It was there. You had to take it. I'd
You know
done
what?
the same.
After living with Josh for X number of years, the puns and these lines they come out more naturally now, right?
I'm very proud of her. A little bit more about some of the history. I tried to look up what was up with the historic version of Lopan, and I did find that there are some internet sites that mention that Lopan may actually refer to the historic Lu Pan, who is considered the patron saint of Chinese builders and carpenters, which is ironic because the director is John Carpenter.
Whoa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys just build all these weird connections that I would not even think of. I mean, and then when you connect it all together, it's like, whoa, that totally makes sense. But if you ask John Carpenter, he's like, I was not even going there at all, but okay.
Yeah. He probably would just give us this long, pathetic stare like, you guys have too much time on your hands, don't you?
It's like that SNL sketch where when it's supposed to be a Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, hey, you, have you even kissed a girl?
Yeah. Get a life. Yeah. Yeah. Endless connections about nothing. But it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about. And who knows? Maybe there could be something there.
Yeah. It keeps me and Josh out of trouble, too.
Keeps you off the streets.
Keeps us off the streets. Otherwise, I know I'd be in Chinatown right now. My Pearl Grey Fiero. Making trouble. Hanging out at SFO. So
another thing I had here was that I love Jack's description of the two Lopans at this point. He refers to the little old basket case on wheels or the 10-foot tall roadblock.
Yeah. Both very appropriate. Mm-hmm. Both very descriptive and like neither one really flattering, Mm-hmm. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I still don't know if Jack is 100% convinced that old guy he talked to before in the last minute really was Lopan. And it probably shows through some of the lines that he's saying.
Yeah, and that fits with Jack's overall, throughout the whole movie. He just like doesn't really totally buy it. He's kicking and screaming and fighting the whole way through.
Yeah, no, that's true. As we sort of end the portion where he's talking about his story, I noticed that he mentions Wang mentions sorcery and Chinese black magic. These are the same things that we got all the way back in minute 1 when Egg was talking about that to the pinstripe lawyer. Sorcery, Chinese black magic. So we get a little bit of repetition there, bringing us back, and then suddenly they have to jump back into their seats, blindfolds, because who comes in but Thunder, and he's bringing Eddie, who gets put on a meat hook.
Poor Eddie.
Yeah. Though it's interesting that you actually do hear a sound effect of fabric ripping to remind audience that Eddie is not being skewered.
Oh.
I totally missed that one.
Yeah. I missed that one too. In continuity time, I got to look in the ensuing minutes if that really cool 80s jacket he's wearing, if it's got a tear like around the collar or something.
That would be a tragedy. That plaid one?
Yeah.
Plaid sports coat? Yeah, it's not going to survive the meat hook.
Oh. And I've never noticed it having a tear or anything like that.
No.
Maybe it's a self-generating magic
It's
jacket.
gotta be.
Eddie's, we keep wondering what's Eddie doing there, and he seems to know a lot of things, and
This whole time his sports coat had been magic.
He has a magic sports coat. So maybe, yeah, I think we're onto something with Eddie.
And then Jack springs to action, but of course, Jack being Jack, he has to say something to Thunder before he's quickly foiled.
Yeah, I think he'll never learn that he should just never have a one-liner before he does anything, because I think that's his curse. He's doomed. He is doomed for the opposite to happen. Make one move and never mind.
I like how there's a ding sound in the music soundtrack the minute he jumps on his back. They play a lot with that in the music. Usually when there's a girl with green eyes, they have to remind us with the ding. And so here, there's that. But then what happens? Wang gets grabbed by the throat and lifted up high. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, a little bit. And Carter Wong looks like he could do that. For all we know, he did do that. They didn't need wires or anything like that.
That looks to me like a Darth Vader move.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The throat hold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, total classic Darth Vader.
And it reminds us just how strong Thunder is.
Yeah.
He's a solidly built guy, and he can do this sort of thing.
Yeah. And again, just the expressions he gets on his face.
Mm-hmm.
He just looks thoroughly ticked off. Now I see what you made me do. Now I got to pick you up by your throat, and I hate doing that.
And then he gets so angry he turns into Hulk.
Well,
Yeah.
Well,
He's kind of got the.
Is that what's happening?
well, that's gonna happen. Yeah. But before we get to that point, Jack does get his second piggyback ride. And once again we can hear the ding in the soundtrack again, which is great.
Oh, it's there again. Okay.
Yeah. And at this point, he is successful in being able to buy time for Wang to get Eddie loose. But my favorite part at this point is just when he said, all right, let's go, and then Jack's just like, how?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, he's stuck, rock and hard place. And then it's time for Thunder to do his Hulk thing.
Yeah. What did you think of that the first time you? This isn't exactly the one where he's gonna really, really blow up like a balloon, but
Yeah, but that was the first thought I had. It's like, oh no, where's this gonna go? What is he gonna turn into? But yeah, he gets big and huffy and puffy.
Yeah, you see the little bit of bulges in his jacket. Just a hint of what's to come later.
That's one thing about this movie is it always, especially the first time you see it, it's like, well, what's happening next? What's happening now? And so I can imagine the first time I saw it, I was like, what is he going to turn into something? Is he just going to get really big? Are we going to see buttons popping?
Mm-hmm.
And will his pants tear off into shorts like the Hulk's? Like they just tear off into shorts.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's a given.
Yeah.
With little those little tooth mark kind of tears.
Castaway.
Yeah, the castaway
pants.
Yeah, just above the knee. So always a good look.
Yeah, well, his name is Thunder, right? So we got to create some thunder and lightning and all that in his.
Thunder down
under. Oh no! So yes, he inflates, and Jack goes flying backwards, and now we begin one of my favorite parts in the movie, and that's the wild wheelchair ride.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like thinking, okay, if I had a ride in Disneyland, I could totally see that riding backwards all the way, and then you're like looking over that well. It was a well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that could completely be a Disneyland ride. I was thinking Haunted Mansion, all that.
That would be a cool thing to add to Haunted Mansion.
Right.
None of this slow moving stuff. No, you go backwards and you go flying all the way back.
And you could fall into an abyss.
Oh.
Never be heard of again. That's high stakes rides.
Yeah, very high stakes rides.
Yeah.
It does. If only this movie were a huge hit and it inspired a ride somewhere. I guess Fox doesn't have an amusement park, but
thank God. Fox News should have an amusement park.
Definitely. But yeah, there could be an
amusement park.
A bemusement park or a befuddlement park. But somewhere out there and maybe in another universe, there's a Big Trouble in Little China ride involving you going backwards
in a wheelchair,
at high speed in a wheelchair.
It seems like a real metaphor, like him sort of blindly sliding backwards, not at his own volition, defeating two armed guys, and then almost falling off the edge of the earth. Basically, he's just kind of always teetering on the edge of ruin and heroism.
Completely.
And then you wonder if he has like magic of his own, trying to get himself back up. It's like, what, you have super abs that are getting you back up from that,
totally that. Yeah, it's abs.
Yeah.
It's a commercial for some kind of like core exercise program, a wheelchair workout.
Yeah. It's a reminder that, he does his best work when he's kind of not aware of it. He just happens to, zoom backwards and take out two guards.
Right.
But he's also, he is a strong guy. The wheelchair bit is a reminder. It's like, he's kind of klutzy and he's full of hot air. But he is a strong guy.
Yeah. No, he does play it very well too. You look at him. He looks like he's really straining, and trying to get himself up.
Yeah, he sells it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now this leads to a question: Is the well just a well? A well is just a well. Well,
a well is never just a well.
A well is never just a well. Or does this lead to another hell? Like Freud said, sometimes a well is just a well.
Oh well.
Oh well.
Yeah, you never really hear it splash when it hits down there. I'm trying to remember.
You do.
Actually, oh wait, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at it now, and yes, there is water down there. So maybe it's just a well. Kind of interesting that here in this whole Wing Kong environment, underneath, with all these interesting rooms, the hell of the upside down sinners and stuff, they decide to just randomly put a well down the middle of a ramp. Or at the end of a ramp, yeah.
That's where they dump the bodies.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe that's, because it does kind of lead straight from that chamber. So maybe what we're seeing is, it's a holding cell for them, but eventually they were going to end up in that well and heading out to the Pacific.
Ooh. Yeah. Sounds nefarious.
Yeah. In fact, it is kind of a ramp thing. So maybe that's, why they're in the wheelchairs. It also just seems like a particularly villainous or sadistic, super villainous Lopan way of saying, okay, I'm going to send you to the hell of the watery grave or something like that. And, have fun. Bye-bye.
I have a note here that if you look carefully at around 3 minutes and 27 seconds, as soon as Wang and Eddie shut the door and you see Kurt Russell rolling backwards, that doesn't look like Kurt Russell. It looks like it's a dummy that they put in the wheelchair.
Oh, no. Did we do like a frame by frame freeze?
You mean Kurt Russell would not want to take a fast ride down a ramp?
Backwards?
Sounds fun.
I'm a little disappointed that it might be a prosthetic Kurt, but on the other hand, even for a stunt man, that'd be a pretty scary ride because you're just riding backwards. That's what we make dummies for.
I I'd love to see if they have a picture of that in the making of, what the other side of that Kurt Russell dummy looked like in the wheelchair there.
Oh yeah,
Just
yeah.
like-
Hopefully there's, there's a picture of them together.
Yeah, posing next to it. Yeah. I do like though that the hallway is just long enough that he tries to flail out and touch the sides and he just can't, and so he's just that awesome yell, and he's just flailing around.
Yeah. And as far as a slapstick sight gag, one great thing about it is the timing, because he screams and screams and screams.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be at least a good maybe 20 seconds or so. Take that Wilhelm scream.
Yeah.
Wilhelm scream.
Yeah. Do you know about the
I don't know about Wilhelm scream.
Wilhelm scream. It's a real quick. It's a famous scream used by sound effects guys.
Oh, it's the same scream used all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a really popular scream that's kind of this high pitched. And it just, it's kind of it's a film geek thing to do, to find the Wilhelm scream, or you hear it and you go, okay, that was a Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, they do that a lot in Star Wars, a lot of Steven Spielberg, George Lucas type stuff. You'll hear that. Ben Burt, the sound designer, likes to throw that in there. Wait,
do you think this is one of those screams, or is that actually Kurt Russell?
No, I'm sure that's actually Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
He does his own screams, man.
he's a high-paid actor. I do my own screaming.
A good place where that might have gone, when he knocks over those wing con guards like bowling pins, as soon as the knocking happens, their scream would have been Wilhelm scream. That would have been appropriate.
Insert scream here. Actually, this brings up a good nerdy trivia question. Josh, to your knowledge, is the Wilhelm anywhere in Big Trouble?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But it should be.
It's that maybe one tiny flaw with the movie is there's no Wilhelm screams, but there's no such thing as a perfect movie. So, we'll allow it. We'll allow it.
My last note that I have about this scene with the well, it's you get that cool shot, with the wheels that are gently swaying in the open air, but this whole thing with the well is not in the screenplay. This was added later. I wonder if this is something that John Carpenter may have suggested, and then they added it later.
Wow, because it seems like it's such an elaborate gag, because it would involve, I'm assuming that they built the ramp and the corridor and the well. I mean, unless they just happen to have a well sitting around somewhere, and somebody, hey, you know what?
So you guys have probably talked about this a million times already, but what is the set when they're inside? When they're in the bowels of Chinatown, what is that set? Where is that? Is that L.A.? Is it a soundstage? What's going on?
That's a very good question, because we're assuming most of this is like on a 20th Century Fox soundstage.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's always been a bit boggling to me. Is this an actual storeroom, or is this a set made to look like a storeroom, or did they happen to find a storeroom with a big pool in the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty well built out. Like, you see the bottom of that well from up. That's good brickwork and stuff.
Pretty well built out. Pretty well built out.
Indeed.
It was there.
Well.
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
I was there. You had to take it.
See what happens.
Puns are like a big bowl of Tootsie Pops. They're just sitting there, and you're just like, okay, I got to grab one. It's just sitting there.
There for the taking.
Mm-hmm.
They're for the taking.
Just makes me hungry.
We'll get Tootsie Pops later.
Well, moving along.
Okay. That one stung a little bit.
Back we are in the hallway, and we get the group reunited. And I like the fact that Wang says, "Oh yeah, great work, Jack." And Jack, he's still kind of shocked at the whole experience he had before. Yet he's still trying to show his bravado. He's like, "Oh yeah."
And I think Eddie's starting to be impressed by Jack. When Eddie first meets Jack, he seems sort of, oh yeah, you're the famous Jack Burton, or whatever his line is. But now Eddie's sort of like, he's seen Jack in action, quote unquote. And Yeah, they just kind of assume that, yeah, Jack intentionally jumped on that wheelchair and took out those 2 guards. That was all part of his master plan.
All part of the plan.
All part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
All in the reflexes.
Yeah. But Eddie does get more exposition, explaining about, what they're going to do and who's waiting outside. And then we get this unfair gun trade. What did you think about this?
Yeah, that was like the Three Stooges. That's what I thought about when they were trading guns. I'm just like, okay, macho's not macho anymore. It was
the Three Stooges comparing their.
And we see that juvenile Jack. I mean, that line, trade ya. I mean, that's 10 years old. I want the cool gun. But this is where he does end up with that iconic Tech 9 that you always see in the posters.
Right, that submachine gun, or it's almost like an Uzi in a way.
Yeah, it's
a Gerber Uzi.
For kids.
Yeah, it's a kid's firearm.
A teething gun.
Yeah, but movie gun nerd that I am, I can tell you a little about the Tech 9. That it looks like some kind of like a machine pistol, but it was actually just a semi-automatic pistol that held a lot of rounds. So yeah, because you never see Jack. Yeah, it looks like a submachine gun. You never see Jack sort of spray the room. It's always bang, 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 bang. And in the late 80s, for some reason, that became a really popular like weapon on the streets.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like a drug dealer gun. There was a bit of a status thing. I got my Tech 9, possibly because of Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China.
No.
But yeah, I'd say its main claim to fame though is Kurt Russell holding it. And but yeah, it mostly you see it in movies because it does have kind of a cool look to it.
Yeah.
But as an actual firearm,
it looks like a machine gun, but it's just
Yeah, it just looks cool.
Yeah.
And that's why Jack wanted it.
Yeah.
That's the cool looking one.
It has a very impressive sound effect when it gets fired later. Though it's like when you hear that sound effect, and we will in later minutes, I've often wondered if that's truly what a Tech 9 sounds like. Looking at that type of gun, and I would almost think that it would be a lot softer, a lot more muffled and more rapid. But
yeah. But in real life, it makes more of just like a metallic crack.
Yeah. From there, Thunder finally gets free. It took him a while. We get a nice bit of anger from Carter Wong.
Yeah. Now, do you think he actually had trouble getting out of the room, or what? It was there. Yeah, I mean, he is a storm.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it took him so long, or am I just like putting way too much thought into this?
I don't know. I guess he just had difficulty. It was a pretty solid wall. Maybe he tried to chew his way out, didn't work.
Personally, I'd like to think that he just wanted a break. It's like, okay, they think they got me. He just like took a break, smoked a cigar, and then decided, okay, now I'm coming out.
The same cigar in the elevator.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has an affinity for cigars.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see they would have this cut scene where you just see him, he's just kind of sitting there, just hanging out, smoking a cigar, looking at his watch, saying, okay, is it enough time for dramatic effect? Yeah. Okay, yeah, now it's time. And he breaks out, and he's got to be really pissed because, the anger is what gives him his power.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, maybe it was, he just sort of wanted to charge up or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was just getting good and mad.
He was just simmering. Waiting.
Yeah.
Biding his time.
Seething. He was seething.
Yes. And then we return to our friend the basket case on wheels in Lopan's, in his office, his room. We get some more of James Hong's good acting. Notice his shaking hand. He gives his angry orders. Again, I guess the beleaguered boss is showing up once more.
Yeah. It's hard running a nefarious, sinister super organization. No one understands the hours involved and the red tape.
But we find out that he can smell human blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And he says it almost with a slightly envious tone, like, oh, they have flesh and blood and I don't.
That's true. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a longing smell for human blood.
Yeah.
That is creepy.
Yeah. Now that with his curse, that would just be the added twist of like, you can feel it, you can smell it, but you can't have it.
He reminds me of a lot of times when witches are characterized this way, where it's like they need to be able to have like little children or something like that, right? Yeah, I have to have children's blood, or like the movie Hocus Pocus. That's kind of what the witches were looking for the kids. So must have to be able to rejuvenate myself.
Yeah, they need someone else's life force.
Well, I like the idea that it's something he can smell, but he can't have. It's as if you're going to the local mall and you smell that Cinnabon. You really want it, but you didn't bring your wallet.
You mean Cinnablood? Cinnablood. I love to go there.
Yeah, it's like you're gluten-free, but there's Cinnabon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So here's a question. I give this to Lena and Audra. I don't know how many times you've seen Big Trouble in Little China, but what did you guys think of Lo Pan when you see him with all that old makeup? What was your thoughts with that?
He's falling apart, and I don't know. I mean, it's like a Halloween thing. It's like you guys were saying before. And see, they made him look really creepy. Like, as in he is like, what was it, 200 something BC old?
He's a 2,000-year-old man.
2,000-year-old man. Yeah. They definitely made him look like that. That's for sure.
Apologies to Mel Brooks, of course.
Exactly.
And you got to see those nails. I mean, those nails are creepy.
Does his nail grow in that scene?
Yes. Yeah. You see his pinky nail grows. When he's about to do his transformation. In fact, you even see a little animated lens flare at that point. And that's something that growing up I never saw. And then I realized later the reason I didn't is because I always watched it on TV or on VHS when it was the pan and scan version. And so it's off screen. You only see it in widescreen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. He's starting to look like the crypt keeper there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he just turns into a lantern, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. I mean,
human lantern.
Yeah, because that's when the last scene in this 5-minute segment is his it's a really cool Lo Pan puppet.
Yeah,
it's a puppet head, and it's a glowing puppet head. But yeah, I never thought of that. But there's a little bit of the crypt keeper there with his motions, and you kind of wonder if anybody worked on both, or there's some kind of a creative connection. But yeah, and they have some kind of a light bulb in that puppet head, and he's glowing. That's a cool effect.
I like the fact that you can actually see the blood vessels in his skull, and it's through that sort of parchment-like transparent skin, and then you get the light coming out of his eyes and mouth. Of course, you got to have it in both.
Love it. There was some special effects makeup technician who spent extra hours, not just to get, overtime or anything. It was like, blood vessels in the head. I got it, look what I did.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how long the actor had to. Who was the actor again for Lo Pan?
James Hong.
Yeah, James Hong. It makes you wonder how long he actually sat there in the chair to get all that makeup done.
It's not him, right?
In the first when you see him in the scene, it's definitely him. And then, they cut to, you can, it's like, there's some good editing here, because I think there's a medium shot where he starts the transformation, and then they cut to a close-up where it's definitely the puppet head, and it's making, it's making these, we've been talking about Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's definitely making those Disneyland kind of, I will turn my head left, I will turn my head right, I will move my head up and down.
Like an automaton.
Yeah, totally. Audio animatronic. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, the first time they had James Hong like maybe face away from the mirror, imagine if they turned him around, he's like, oh my God.
Well, I've heard stories about how some people will be in the makeup chair and they'll fall asleep, and it takes hours and hours for them to do it, and then finally they're done, and then they wake up and they put a mirror, and then they're all freaked out.
Oh, that's wild. That would be weird.
Yeah.
Like, hey, who is that? That's me.
Crazy.
Ooh.
Yeah, we were talking in the last episode about the makeup that was happening with James Hong and Lo Pan, and it turns out it was Steven Johnson, the same guy who did the creature effects along with Robert Edlund. And I was looking again at the Entertainment Weekly article where they talk about the different characters. They interview them, and Stephen Johnson mentions, and so does James Hong, that it took 9 or 10 hours to put that makeup on. That's a long
crazy.
time.
Wow.
That means like 9 or 10 hours. That's like starting, I guess, at midnight, so you can be ready to shoot at 8, 9 in the morning.
Oh, horrible, man.
Though I've heard worse makeup chair stories. I think it was Ron Perlman when he was doing Hellboy. It was I'm trying to remember the details, but it was almost like it would take almost a full day to put on the full Hellboy suit, and then it would be like shooting for a full day. So Ron Perlman would be up for like 2 or 3 straight days, and then they'd have to take a break, and it's almost like the kind of shifts that like firemen and policemen have, where it's like, well, 3 days on and then 2 days off, and then just like it's hard work. So yeah, James Hong, he had it easy. He only had 8 hours in the chair. That's nothing.
And that wraps up the minutes. I mean, at that point, it's basically fade to white, and we were going to get some interesting stuff in the next minutes. But I'm curious. While we have you guys on the line, so Lena, tell me. I mean, because really, you've never seen Big Trouble in Little China except with me. I mean, what were your first thoughts when I showed it to you?
Well, I was happy to hear when I was listening to the other podcast that other people also were like, oh, I didn't get it the first time I watched it. And then as I watched it more and more, I kind of grew to appreciate certain nuances. There was just so much going on. It's like you got the magic, and you got the costumes, and you got the martial arts. There's just so much. And then you kind of learn to appreciate some of the quotes and the scenes and the characters. And I mean, even after listening to the podcast, when it gets broken down even more, you're like, oh, I never knew that. So you definitely begin to see the movie from different angles. So that was my experience. What about you, Audra?
I think I've seen the movie about 3 or 4 times, maybe 5. I lost track. But I agree. I really did like it the first time, but like with anything that's well written and well made, it continues to grow and shed extra meaning, and you start to see more details, like a growing pinky nail and things like that. The more you watch it, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It kind of is, I mean, here we are, like completely dissecting it. We're practically doing, DNA samples on it.
This is it's a close reading, what we do here.
Audra, would you say that in your time working with burlesque that you've ever had certain acts or people dressing up in a certain way that may have been influenced by Big Trouble in Little China? I'm just curious.
No.
Oh.
You mean nobody dresses up like Lopan in burlesque?
Not yet.
There's an opportunity there.
I can relate, if you don't mind talking about an act you did with latex and makeup and prosthetics. You've done some interesting acts.
I've done an act where I stripped my skin off, and it's kind of deconstructionist burlesque. But I just made sort of extra skin out of skin-colored latex, and while I was stripping my clothes off to the music, I start to strip my skin off, and I'm trying to hide it from the audience, like, oh no, this is embarrassing. And then I just can't handle it, and I just keep ripping my skin off.
Wow.
I don't really do that act anymore because it's a lot of preparation to make the liquid latex skin. Like you have to do a strip of it on your skin, and then blow dry it and do another strip and blow dry it just to make it like one area thick enough to where it might look gross enough from the audience.
Wow. Yeah, and that is one angle in the neo burlesque scene that you have like horror acts or gross out acts where it's like it starts off one way and then it just goes horribly wrong. And
I don't want to say that there's no one doing Big Trouble in Little China burlesque. I'm sure there is someone doing something somewhere. It's a vast world out there. I just haven't seen it firsthand, but I think that would be kind of fantastic. Someone could figure it out.
A female Lopan?
Why not?
Yeah.
Or boylesque.
Ooh, yeah.
Doing some Lopan action.
Boylesque.
I don't know. I mean, there's burlesque of any sort, and the fact that I can tour with a Weird Al based burlesque troupe just proves that there's someone doing something for everything.
Doesn't relate directly to the podcast, but what are you guys' take on Weird Al Yankovic? Are you fans of Weird Al?
I grew up listening to basically all of his albums on cassette tape. A lot of his old stuff, yeah. Basically up until mid '90s, and I've been to a Weird Al concert before, in LA, and great stuff.
I just know more about Weird Al since meeting you. You let me listen to some of the music, so
it got me to play the accordion. I can tell you that.
Nice.
Me too. I tried. It's a very difficult instrument.
Yeah, it is tricky. I have a regular one with the keyboard and the one with the buttons.
Yeah.
They're kind of tricky, and it can frighten some children.
Did you learn how to play Lady of Spain? I feel like that's like the one song you have to know how to play on accordion if you're going to have an accordion.
I've never tried that one, but I'll have to look that one up. Yeah. Lady of Spain.
That does seem to be like there's a sort of a lore to the accordion and Lady of Spain.
Yeah. Then you can just like play in any Italian restaurant. Job placement.
Yeah. But yeah, Weird Al is very important to us here. And so I had a feeling you'd probably be a Weird Al fan. You're the right age, and his MTV videos and stuff like that. So
yeah. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up then. Make sure everybody please visit us at 5minutesoftrouble.com. You can check us out on Facebook at 5 Minutes of Trouble. You can also join our 5 Minutes of Trouble truck stop and discuss this episode, talk about other things, Big Trouble in Little China, maybe Weird Al Yankovic. And you can also see us on Twitter at 5 Minutes Trouble. And we ask, please, if you can tell your friends about this podcast and give us a nice rating on iTunes, we'd really appreciate it. We are also on the Stitcher. And I wanted to also have a shout out to some of the other Movies by Minutes podcasts that are out there. There's a bunch that have just started really springing up in the last couple of weeks. Beetlejuice is having a Minute by Minute podcast. Jurassic Park is doing one. And there's even one that is not doing the Minute by Minute. It's doing it in 2-minute chunks, and that's called 2T, which is about the movie Terminator 2, I guess. Yeah, so they're doing it in 2-minute chunks.
2T2?
Yeah, 2T2. So be sure to check those guys out. You can also go to moviesbyminutes.com for a list of the Hall of Champions, as Pete and Alex from Star Wars Minute like to put it.
It's a weird world, man. It's a weird world.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps it up. Any final thoughts, guys?
I was happy to be here. This was an amazing experience. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lena, for being here. Now you see what it's like.
Yes.
Indeed.
Absolutely fun to have you. Congratulations. You're now a podcast veteran.
Woot.
And thank you, Audra, as well, for agreeing to come back on for your second run. I hope you had a good time.
I love it here. I'm prepared to move here to this podcast. My bags are packed. And Lena, it was really great to meet you.
Same here. It's fun.
Oh, and Brett, from last episode, you remember, you are driving this one home this time.
Okay. Let me I shouldn't have had that Mai Tai, but okay, let me, okay. So
the drugs are kicking in.
Here I'm getting in the driver's seat. And what is that, the gear shift or is that the emergency brake? But anyway, here we go. So we're hitting the road, but we'll be back next week with another 5 Minutes of Trouble. I smell smoke.
Oh no.